To get a 99 percentile in the VARC section of your CAT exam, all you need to do is get 15 questions net correct. 45 marks and you're good to go. If your aim is to just clear the cutoff, the number is even lower. All you need to do is get 8 questions correct. However, the important factor to note here is what exactly do you need to do to reach this magical number? Hi, my name is Priya Chatterjee Ray and I graduated from IIM Ahmedabad earlier this year. This VARC session is the first in a set of 3 strategy videos where I give you the last minute tips and tricks that you must remember before you take your CAT exam in the month of November. Before you watch this video, I suggest that you watch the 3 other videos that I have posted just before this. The first is the 75-day strategy video where I explain how you can use mocks to build up your own attempt strategy for the exam. The next is my 50-day strategy video where I give you a detailed revision plan for the next 50 days. And finally is my mock analysis video where I tell you how it is that you need to identify your strengths and weaknesses so that you can perform to the best of your ability in the actual exam. Now, that out of the way, let's move on to the VARC section. The first tip here is for you to decide beforehand whether you will attempt the RCs first in the exam or if you will take a look at the verbal ability section first. Many people tend to do RCs, VA, then RCs again. When it was my turn, I looked at the RCs completely beforehand and then moved on to the VA section. This is because 70% of the paper is made up of RCs, and if you get at least 3 of the 4 sets of RCs correct in this section, you will reach your magic number. I suggest you do the same, but it's always up to you to decide what the perfect strategy for you will be. Now, decided that we will move forward with the RCs first, we have to decide our RC selection strategy. This can be done in 2 ways. First, you go with an RC whose theme you like. For example, I preferred social sciences based themes because they tended to be more factual and easier to solve than, say, philosophy themes. Or you can read the first paragraph of each RC that you come across and you can decide if the writing style of that RC is something that you are comfortable with. If that is also not working, what you can do is you can take a look at all the questions first and see if the questions are fact-based or inference-based and decide to do whichever one you are good at. Remember, out of the 16 RCs that will be there in the paper, which is 4 passages, usually one is the overtly difficult one, and it should be your aim to avoid that. Third tip, however, is to not get stuck on this line, right? You don't have to finish all RCs. Feel free to move on to the VA section for a breather if you feel that the RCs are getting too heavy for you. Just because I have said that one of the RC passages will be tough doesn't mean that only one RC passage will appear tough to you. Maybe because of a difference in reading style or writing style or question type, you may find more than one passage to be difficult. At that point, don't stick it in your head that you have to finish 3 passages for you to be able to convert a good score. Feel free to move on when you need a breather. When I took the exam, I treated the VA section as a breather section because I wouldn't have to read so much and I could quickly go through it. Moreover, because it was a TETA type question, I often felt that there was less risk involved in those questions. These 2 points have helped us cover your order of attempting the questions and your order of selecting the questions. The next thing that you need to do is look at your RC attempt strategy. For this, you have to try and test and see what works for you. There are multiple ways to do this. The first thing that you can do is that you read the entire passage and then you look at the questions. What you can also do is that you skim the RC passage, go to the questions, look at them and read each word of the question properly and then go back to the RC to attempt the questions. When I took the exam, I personally did this. I skimmed through the entire passage, looked at what the important meanings or phrases in each of the passages were, remembered that in my head, went to the questions, read the words in the questions very minutely, and came back to the section of the passage in the RC that I thought would answer that question. For VA strategy, look at your mock analysis and see the trend that you have seen in terms of your performance in VA. Have you historically done better in para jumbles or summaries? Once you see that overall, out of the 40 mocks that you've taken, you have historically maintained a good, say, strike rate or a good number of correct options decided in every para jumble question that you've taken, go forward and do that first in the exam so that you build up some confidence for yourself. However, if you see that you tend to do inference type questions better or you tend to do summary type questions better, choose to do that first in the exam. Now, you need to remember that the CAT exam or your CAT score will be a function of your attempt rate and your accuracy rate and the golden circle that you find in between these two. For this, you have to look at the relationship between these two sections over your multiple mocks and the analysis that you have done. If you attempt 24 questions, do you get 10 questions wrong? If you attempt only 15 questions, do you get no questions wrong at all? Remember I said 15 net correct? If you do 24 questions and get 10 wrong, you get 32 marks. But if you attempt 15 questions and get no questions wrong, that is have a lower attempt rate and a higher accuracy rate, you get your 45 and you got the 99 percentile that you need in this section. Everyone's attempt accuracy ratio is different. Personally, the more I attempted in my VARC section, the more I scored. And this is something I figured out after analyzing over 30 mocks. Don't leave this to chance on the main day. Look at your mock analysis now and figure out how you perform. Do you perform better when you try to solve more questions or when you say make a tukka or an educated guess? Do you tend to get that right? Or do you tend to get these educated guesses wrong? In which case you need to work on reducing your attempts and increasing your accuracy so that you can maximize your score. Now, let's deep dive into the VARC section. I will split this advice into two parts. First is your attempt rate and how to increase the number of questions you attempt in the exam. And second is accuracy rate, which is how to improve the number of correct questions that you do in the exam. First, talking about attempt rate. How do you increase the number of questions that you attempt in this section? Simple advice. You read faster and you understand better. Now, I'll give you 4 tips to improve this. First is reading correctly. Reading correctly here means not reading every single word in the passage. You just have to skim through, avoiding words like the, is, etc. These are just filler words that are a part of the paragraph and can be avoided completely. Second, don't have to read in so much detail that you know exactly every single word that is in that paragraph. Just remember what is where. Don't have to make notes for this. I have a Telegram group which I will discuss later in the video where people have told me that they're making notes for the VARC section based on the advice of an educator. If you do that, great. I personally feel that doing something like this is actually wasting more time in the exam, and the CAT exam at the end of the day is a time-based test and you don't have the time to sit and make notes. I would suggest roughly remembering what each paragraph talks about. You don't have to remember things like names, numbers, facts, examples. Just get the main idea. Don't fixate on every little detail and move on if you don't understand anything. Third, paraphrase. Paraphrase means summarizing. You basically look at the entire paragraph and grasp the entirety of its meaning in a single line or a few words. A senior of mine, Shweta Arora, had given the best advice on how you can paraphrase quickly if you're not being able to do it. This is looking for repetition in the paragraph. If you see a word, its meaning or its synonyms repeated multiple times throughout the paragraph, you can more or less decide that that is what the paragraph speaks about. For example, if you read a paragraph which is talking about love, care, friendship, etc., and you then move into the questions and you see a question that is asking you what the author means by love in this particular passage, you always know which paragraph you have to go back to. You go back to the paragraph where you had seen the multiple repetitions of this word, and that is where you look for the answer. The fourth way of increasing your attempt rate is attempting fact-based questions. This you can do even in the last 5 or 10 minutes of your test. For example, you don't have the time to read another RC passage. What do? You quickly move through all the questions and you see if there are any fact-based questions that you have left unattempted. This could be something along the lines of the author by the word X means so and so. And then you can quickly skim through the passage and see if you can find the meaning to that question fast. Usually works even if you're not attempting the entire passage. For example, in my personal CAT attempt, that's how I was able to maximize my VARC section. What I did was I skimmed through all the questions in the last 3 minutes that I had before the sectional ended. So I found 2 extra questions whose answers were very fact-based and mostly just word meaning based, and I was able to solve those 2 in the last 3 or 4 minutes. Attempt rate out of the way, this is the most important part of this video. You have to try to improve your accuracy in the VARC section. The golden tip or the one way to ace this section is to eliminate options or decide why an option is wrong. The RCs you must remember are a function not of what is the correct answer, but what is the wrong answer. Don't go by your hunches or don't go by an educated guess in this section. You have to look for mistakes in each option. My golden tip to you when you're doing your next mock, your next sectional, or even the CAT exam, in every option that you read, try to figure out what is that mistake in that option that can disqualify it. Now, this is the method known as elimination, which is my second tip. My second tip can actually be an entire video in itself, but I would suggest that you watch Shabana ma'am's video on learning how the 14 plus ways of eliminating an option. Let's take an example. Suppose a sentence reads, "Some kings are despots and want to be remembered." Now, the first way of eliminating is to A, look for extreme options. If your option says all kings want power, that is an extreme sentence because the sentence that we had read above spoke about some kings. There is a difference between some and all becomes an extreme statement, which is more often than not wrong. The second way to do it is wordplay. If the sentence, instead of reading "some kings are despots and want to be remembered," if the sentence reads "some kings want to be leaders of the world." Now, more or less, you can relate despots and want to be remembered with being a leader of the world, but that is not what the sentence in the paragraph is speaking about. And therefore, by using a word play, they have made this option incorrect. Third, word trap. If your sentence reads, "Some kings are despots and will do anything to be remembered," that is also an incorrect statement because there is a difference between wanting to be remembered and being willing to do anything to be remembered. Just by changing a few words but keeping most of the sentence the same, they have changed the entire meaning of the sentence. And when you see these things in an option, you should recognize that these are the options that you need to eliminate. Some other ways to eliminate options are the options being too narrow, too broad, etc. If you want a video on elimination techniques, let me know in the comments below and I will make a detailed video on the 14 tips that you can remember to eliminate wrong options. My third tip for getting accuracy up in your mocks or in your CAT exam is to not go by the first or last impression in a paragraph. You need to grasp the central theme, and that is the question that you tend to believe. Now, the first paragraph and the last paragraph of a passage could be speaking about anything. The first sentence and the last sentence of a paragraph could be speaking about anything. Don't decide that that is the central theme of the paragraph or the passage just by reading that. When I say skim, I don't mean read just the first and the last sentence. I mean more or less go through every sentence in the paragraph and passage and make a general theme about it. My fourth tip is to not go by your own assumptions or your own understanding. Just because you think that you know what a particular concept means, maybe it's something really niche about quantum dots, for example, and you know what quantum dots mean because you have studied it in your undergrad, doesn't mean that you go ahead and just assume that that is the correct meaning and that is exactly what the paragraph is talking about. In your RCs and every question you answer, look for evidence to prove that an option is correct, or look for evidence, even better, to prove that an option is wrong. Finally, don't rush through the questions and the options. This article that they pick up as a passage in your RC, in the RC section, is taken from the internet, sure. But the questions are set by a question setter. The questions are the ones that are out there to trap you. The passage, whatever it is something that a layman is reading. The questions are the tricky ones, the options are the tricky ones, and that is where you mess up. Go through each word of the question and each word of an option as if you are a child learning to read for the first time. Go back to the paragraph if need be and look for those specific questions or the specific portions. Look for evidence. But whatever happens, don't skim through the questions or the options. That is where you need to keep your concentration at the 100% because that is where we tend to make our mistakes. The next 4 tips are just general tips for the last 50 days to improve your vocabulary, reading speed, etc. so that you are up to date on your VARC section in time for the exam. The first tip, and this is something that you will find in my 50-day strategy revision plan as well, read an Aeon essay every single day, or if possible, do both, and a Hindu editorial every day. Most of the times, the questions that come or the passages that come in the VARC section are picked up from online sources like Aeon. And even if they're not picked up from there, the level of writing or the level of understanding that you need or the number of words are similar to Aeon. So if you read these passages every day for the next 50 days, you will be able to build up your own stamina to read in the actual exam. Second, read every passage with interest. Try to get engrossed in what you're reading. This will stop you from feeling exhausted because this is something that I faced in my own exam. In my slot, we had a passage on sea lions, which really made my eyes bleed. I wanted to, but I stopped for a second, I stopped for a minute, and then I started reading that passage again as if it is the most interesting passage I had ever read, as if it was the first time I was reading Harry Potter. And doing that helped me break out of this exhaustion zone and helped me look at the passage in a completely new light. It shut just those 60 seconds of me shutting my eyes and coming back with a new motivation helped me solve that passage. And believe it or not, I got every single question right on that passage, even though I hated it at first glance. Third, forget about vocabulary building now. Focus on contextual understanding of the words that are used in the passage. The questions are more geared towards what does the author mean when he say this, rather than asking you for the exact dictionary definition of the word. So this is not the time for you to be doing your Norman Lewis or trying to learn 50 new words a day. You don't have the time to do this. Practice reading, try summarizing, try paraphrasing, and try to understand the meaning of words in context. Some minutes ago, I used the word despot in a sentence. See if you understood what despot meant contextually, even if you didn't know what the dictionary meaning of that word was. My fourth and final tip. Whatever you do for the next few days, try to practice solving, reading, etc. online. Don't read on a phone, don't read on your iPad, try to read on a laptop. You have to get used to scrolling because in the actual CAT exam, you will get the passage in a long scroll that you will have to use your mouse to go through. You will not be able to make marks. You will not be able to highlight parts. You will not be able to take notes unless you're using a separate paper, which I've already told you is a very bad idea. So offline practice will not help. Read online. So that's it. Those are all the tips. I think 4 plus 4 plus 4, maybe 12 tips are all I had for the VARC section. I promise you that if you apply these tips to your mocks starting from tomorrow, you will see a marked improvement in your scores. However, not everything I say will probably work for you. So ensure that you try different attempts and different accuracy strategies in every single mock that you take going forward for the next 2 weeks and finalize what your personal attempt strategy will be. Coming on this channel in the next few weeks is going to be my QA advice video and my LRDI advice video. After that, I will give you a set of my 10 most important mental tricks that you need to keep in mind for the CAT exam. And finally, in the beginning of November, I will post a video about the attempt strategy that I followed in my actual CAT exam so that you know exactly what I did when I was solving that 2-hour paper sitting in that leaking hall in a very, very cold room when I had to take the CAT exam. That's all that I had for this video. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, comment any questions if you have them. I also have a Telegram group where we are a small family of about 200 to 300 people where everyone speaks about any questions they have that I try to answer to the best of my knowledge, and when I can't, their own cohort of students help answer those questions for them. We keep track of our targets for the day based on the 50-day revision plan that I had made, just so that we have some sort of accountability to each other at the end of all of this. You're most welcome to join the group if you want to. The link will be in the description box below. Make sure to check out the 75-day strategy and the 50-day strategy so that you have a basis for your revision and you know how to use mocks to the best of your ability going forward. And most importantly, don't forget to keep taking mocks and keep analyzing mocks so that you know what your strengths and your weaknesses are. All the best for the CAT exam. I will see you in my next video. Till then, bye-bye.